How many times does Haruki Murakami rewrite his novels? And we are going to hear Murakami talk about this at length today. And this is such an important question for you guys in 2024 because all of us want to be selling books on Amazon. All of us want to be on the path to becoming a full-time author. And the process of revision, which is actually over 95% of great writing, really is overlooked by not just a lot of people, but by content creators on YouTube and in books because revision is not as sexy as figuring out the plot, figuring out if your characters are going to have a negative or a positive arc. But what's funny is that Murakami got away in his novels for over a decade without naming characters. Another channel favorite, Cormac McCarthy, got away with writing novels with no plot and no interiority with characters and really no characterization, and he's considered a GOAT. And so when you are in the literary fiction realm, these things don't matter as much. If you were writing a fantasy book or a science fiction book or a genre book that you're going to market to a niche subsection on Amazon, then okay, you need all of that or they're going to be pissed. But literary fiction, great writing, the best writing is all about revision. And if you guys don't already know, my name is Ian, and here on Right Conscious, we talk about Haruki Murakami. In the playlist down below, you will find more videos on Murakami if you are interested in his life, his books, and his writing process. And I would love to have you guys on this journey with me, but let us now hear from Murakami. How many times do I rewrite? There's no specific number. There are countless rewrites at the manuscript stage, and I asked for new galleys many times during the proofreading process. Much to my editor's dismay, I mark the galleys up in pencil until each page is covered in black and send them off, then mark them up again when the clean copy is returned, over and over again. As I said before, writing is a profession that requires stamina, and in truth, I don't mind. The fact is, I have a deep-rooted love for tinkering, so I have no problem reading a passage multiple times to check its rhythm, or fiddling with its word order, or making tiny adjustments to its expression. I like looking at the galleys being covered in black, and the 10 or so number 2 pencils wearing down to stubs on my desk. I don't know why, but I can't get enough of it. I could go on like that forever and not get tired. Raymond Carver, a writer I love and respect, also enjoyed tinkering. He wrote about another writer that he knew he was finished with the short story when he found himself going through it and taking out commas and then going through the story again and putting commas back in the same places. I know that feeling exactly, for I have had the same experience many times. You reach the limit. If you tinker anymore, you will only damage what you have written. It's a subtle point, easy to miss. The bit about replacing comma hits it right on the head. And so I want to logically show you guys how much revision it is going to take you. Yes, you are not the exception to write a great novel. And even bigger than that, if you are trying to reach the next level, you're going to have to complete a project well. And so maybe this book that you were writing, even with all this revision, isn't going to be a masterpiece. It's not going to be remembered as a great. Maybe it won't sell any copies, but unless you finish it and go through the process, you can't reach the next level. We talk about authors on this channel all the time who say the most important thing you can do is finish and release something. But much like practicing a golf swing or a tennis swing, practice doesn't make perfect, it makes permanent. And the process that you develop, the mindset that you are entering with starting, working on, and then publishing a novel will carry on to your next works. And so I understand the reality of this world that most of you guys like me are working full-time jobs, maybe more. You're taking care of kids, like it's a lot. And so don't let these numbers scare you because I'm going to offer a solution in a second to how you can kind of overcome the numbers I'm about to present to you. And so Murakami is a very consistent author and he writes for 35 hours a week. So if we times that by 52, which is the weeks of the year, we get 1820. And so over the course of 2 years, which we will call Murakami's average time writing a novel, I would actually put this more toward 3 years, but we'll call it 2 to not, scare you guys too much, is 3,600 hours working on a novel. And so he spends about 600 hours of that on the first draft. And so Murakami on average is spending 3,000 hours revising. And so if you want to look at your life personally, if you worked on a novel for 3 hours a day for 300 days a year, giving yourself some days off and some leeway, that would take you around 4 years to release a novel. And like I said, I think that number is somewhat conservative for Murakami. But now we need to reflect on our own life and our own habits. And I want you to question, are you writing three hours a day for 300 days a year? And I don't want your answer to be a fantasy of what you can do. What are you actually doing in reality? Because to write for 3 hours a day, if you have a full-time job and a family, and keep that commitment for 300 days a year is a lot. And we're not even equating in that Murakami and his working of 5 to 6 hours a day is showing up at 100%. That's all he has to do. If you write for 3 hours a day, but you have a job, you have a kid, you have all these things, you are functioning at a much lower level in terms of energy. Murakami's entire day is centered around his writing. Your entire day is centered around other parts of your life. And so I would say for most of you guys who are working a couple hours a day, if you aren't spending more than 4 to 7 years working on one of your novels, then you are screwing over your reader, because we once again want to believe that we are the exception, that we can get away with this stuff, and we love to overestimate how much work we actually put in, like how, like, I've spent so much time on this. But when you ask someone to read your 100,000 word novel, and don't get me started about the people who write a 500,000 word novel as their first novel, you are asking someone to spend at least 5+ hours reading your work. And if it's terrible, of course, they're never going to read anything that you write ever again. They're not going to spread it through word of mouth, which is kind of the key to creating independent sales outside of algorithms or major publishing houses. They may leave bad reviews, but worst of all, we only have so much time here on this earth. And so what kind of jerk are you to waste someone's time with something that is not polished, something that could have been better? When you don't polish something, you are enacting a superiority complex on the reader, because you are saying as an author that you have transcended the audience, that you are just this lowly author who doesn't care what people think, and you're just writing because you have the impulse to write and nothing else matters, and you're putting your work out in the world. That is some of the most cocky and narcissistic stuff ever. You have an opportunity, you have a talent to help people, to change their life, to help them escape a little bit. And you're worried about yourself? When you look at the real authors, I'm not talking about Hunter S. Thompson and Charles Bukowski. I love them and they're good authors. But the greats, they were humble individuals. When you look at why they wrote the themes that they were writing about, it was to change the world. It was from a deep pain in their own heart. And there is this logical virus that people get, because when you start to read, you can start dissecting all the dumb people in the world and all these aspects of life, and be able to out-debate your wife or your family or the people at work. And then you see everyone on Book Talk, reading all these terrible books. And so it's really easy to fall into this superiority complex. I know I have before. And so I want you guys to hold in your heart, even if you don't care about your reading audience, the idea that you are getting these ideas, this inspiration, from a creative source, like even if you don't believe in that. But when you read Murakami's work, it's magical. But from what I know about the flow state and spirituality and creating art, that if I am cocky, if I'm using my logical mind, I feel like I am writing something great. And it is pretty good, but it never compares to when I am relaxed, when I'm humble, and I do connect to whatever that creative muse is when you get into that state. And that state's not only during the first draft. That mostly happens for me in revision. I kind of like, my head starts moving a little bit. I'm like, oh my God. And I feel the rhythm. I feel these things. I see beyond the page and almost connect to what the reader is going to be experiencing. And so a lot of the resistance to revision, once again, is connected to being cocky and thinking that you are better than the reader, or that you are this misunderstood person. You're not. This isn't Catcher in the Rye. This isn't a confederacy of the dunces. You are a human being who can help. So don't screw it up. And so when we see Murakami's mentality, when we hear about Raymond Carver and how much they were revising, I think, first of all, that many people just want to be writers because they wrote in high school and were good as writers, and they kind of create this persona, and everyone wants to have their own artistic pursuit and do their thing in the world. But when it comes down to the process of spending, 4,000 hours just on revision, people can barely keep an attention span or do anything in life and be consistent with it. How many people fail in their workout program and their diet and all these other things? And I want to kind of set an axiomatic definition of what a rewrite is. And so let's say you belt out your first draft of the novel. Here we have it. We have your 80,000 word novel. A rewrite is not just going through everything and looking through it and changing some things and putting commas in and like, oh, this section kind of sucks and making it better. It's really about trying to improve at a pretty high level as much as you can, a list of certain things, many of which people never contemplate. For instance, sentence structure, contrast, rhythm, flow, vibe. You see all those words? You don't hear that in the characterization, plot, negative arc, positive arc, dialogue. Like there are things that you see in revision if you're trying to write something great, because everyone has an interesting story. It's really hard. I mean, it's funny when people fail to create a plot or characters that aren't interesting. That's so easy. You could literally think of something in your head right now. That's crazy. But how do you hook a reader? How do you hook people in 2024 with no attention span to spend 8 hours reading your novel? And it's going to happen in the unconscious, because they can go watch a movie and see everything happening in an action movie if they just want plot and characterization. They can go watch a TV show. But what isn't present on TV is deep levels of interiority, contrast, and then combining all that in sentence structure that aligns with the inner workings and attunement of the brain. And there is no method to this, and it's only achieved through feeling and through contemplation. Because when you read a novel, and you guys know what I'm saying, like the best of the best, whatever you like most, that's what it's doing. It literally aligns with your entire soul. And so each rewrite is getting us a step closer to that eventual goal. But unfortunately, all of us can't always be revising. And when you were at work, when you were standing in line, when you were cleaning your house, I would say that you should always be listening to an audiobook or reading a book. And I've assembled the authoritative resource on Haruki Murakami's favorite books and authors for free for you guys. And all you have to do to see that and increase your reading list in one click is go to the description down below, click on the link, and then voila, you will have instant access to Murakami's headspace and inspirations. And if you have a little money in your pocket and want to join a Haruki Murakami book club, we are currently reading 1Q84, and we'll eventually read through all of Murakami's novels. But when you join my book club, you don't just get access to Murakami. You get access right now to over 10 other book clubs that are happening simultaneously with recorded book club calls, and some of them even have courses attached. I also host daily office hours where you can talk to me personally, a writing group, and so much more. And if you were interested in that, that is also available if you click the link, in the description down below. Anyway, so revision is a relationship. As Murakami says, I don't have a problem checking for rhythm, fiddling with word order, making tiny adjustments. And that's what it's about. What he's saying there is sentence structure. Raymond Carver, was talking about rhythm through punctuation. And so I'm just going to be honest with you guys. As I am sitting here and telling you guys this doesn't sound that fun. I'm maybe on hour 1,500 to 2,000 of my novel's revision stage, but that is taking me 7 years. I mean, it's been on the back burner. I've been more interested in other forms of writing, but I am interested a lot of the time in more immediate and inspired writing. And so there are things that you can do as you were revising your novel, because like I said, we got 4 to 7 years of revision until it can get released. But are you just supposed to sit in purgatory and then have this book and then have, and pray to the gods that it's going to get published by a major publishing house? And if not, then you're just going to post it on Kindle and no one's going to buy it except your friends and family. And the best thing that I've done, and my recommendation to all of you guys, and this will improve your novel, improve everything about your writing career in life, is in the meantime, as you are publishing, so finish the first draft, get a first draft down. If you want to be a novelist, if you want to get a book out, get the first draft done. There are people out there who I talk to all the time in my writing group or whatever, who are talking about this and that, but they still haven't got the first draft done. You could do that in a month during National Novel Writing Month. That's the easiest part. But once you have that done, put that away, and then, for a month or two, and then you can come back to that and start tinkering with the revision. But I would 100% recommend that you post short stories, nonfiction, or poetry online for free to the world, and not be a perfectionist about it. Not make it 100%, because if someone reads your stuff online for free, first of all, they're not paying money, and it's a short read. It will probably take 20 minutes at most. And so there's not that sense of betrayal when you buy a book and it sucks, or you spend all this time reading it because maybe you were interested in the person. And you're like, damn, that really sucked. And that is the strategy. That is the way in 2024. And people ask me all the time, how do I get people to read my stuff? What do I do? I'm working on this novel. No one cares about my stuff. And if you want to learn this, or how to do this, at a deeper level, over on school.com, I run a writing school that is still in the waiting period. We already have 281 people waiting. It is 100% free. And it is going to launch with 5 full courses on how to build your reading audience, which goes over everything that I'm talking about here, but in detail on what you need to be doing until your book is published so that people actually want to read it. I also have a prose writing course, a poetry writing course where I just talk about sentence structure and how to improve your writing skills, which some of you need and some of you don't need. Then also a course on overcoming writer's block, and then a meditation course for authors. And so all of that is free. You can get on the waiting list now. I am finally back at home. As you guys can see, I was on vacation for 3 weeks, and I'm going to put all my effort into launching that school course in July sometime. And so now I want to ask you guys, how many times did you revise your novel that got published? How many times are you planning on doing it? Did this video kind of expand your mind on how many hours that you need to put into it? Because I haven't really even mentioned it yet, but Murakami, I would say, is more on the conservative side. Guys like Cormac McCarthy and David Foster Wallace spend easily 7,000 plus hours revising their novels. And then when you start to add editors and people into the mix, it gets even crazier, because how many hours are they contemplating and thinking about it? How many hours are put in by the artists and the marketing team? And this is, if you're going to self-publish, you have to make up that time. If you can't afford an editor, if you can't pay the thousands of dollars or whatever, then you're going to have to do that yourself. If you don't have $1,000 for a book cover, you're going to have to somehow learn real graphic design, or no one's going to care. Like, I was reading I Know Why the Caged Bird Sings, rereading it the other day, and this is a pretty fly book cover. How long does it take you to be able to make something like that? That's just somewhat simple and appealable. I know, as someone who makes YouTube thumbnails and t-shirt designs, that it's a lot of time. And so building and monetizing a reading audience, even before you start publishing books, may be important, because you can put all of that money into the production, editing, book covers, whatever, of your book when it launches. Because the most heartbreaking thing that I've ever witnessed is someone working on a book for 8 years and it goes out and 0 people buy it. And I don't want that to be you. And so in the meantime, as you are spending the 8,000 hours revising your novel, come check me out on School. Come visit me over here, say what's up, and good luck on your revision.